The history of extrusion dates back over 100 years. Extrusion technology was first used in the 1880s to coat and insulate wire with rubber extruders for use exclusively with plastics, however, appeared around 1935. Since then, the technological development, both materials and machinery has made the wide range of today's extruded products practical and possible. New materials and techniques that further broaden the scope of extrusion applications are continually being developed and marketed. Today, extruders are used in the plastics industry to make a wide variety of items that have a continuous shape. These include fibers, sheet film, tubing and pipe profiles, and coated products including coated wire and cable. Even this netting is made by extrusion. Extruders are also used to produce a tube or parison, which is then used to make hollow shapes by the blow molding process. Sheets of plastic produced on an extruder may be further shaped by the thermoforming process to make products such as appliance liners, toys, and packaging. In addition to making finished products, extruders are widely used for the compounding of plastics with other plastics and with additives that change or improve their properties. These compounded plastics, such as these pellets and granules, become the raw material for other plastic processing methods, including extrusion. Hand injection molding. How does the extrusion process work? We look at the common extrusion processes that make plastic products. We'll start with the extruder. Plastic raw material feeds from the hopper through the feed throat to a rotating screw, which conveys the plastic through a heated barrel. During this process, it is melted, mixed, and its pressure is increased to typically between 10,005,000 psi or 72,350 bar. The plastic then flows through a die that shapes the melted plastic, called the extrudate. Beyond the die, the plastic is sized and cooled, pulled away at a uniform rate, and then wound or cut to size. In all extrusion processes, the plastic goes through the same steps. It is one heated and mixed in the extruder, two forced through a die, three shaped and cooled, four pulled away at a uniform rate. Many extrusion processes include finishing steps such as trimming, cutting to size, printing, winding on a roll, or other steps. The most commonly used forms of raw material are pellets or granules, beads, and regrind. Regrind is plastic that has been previously extruded and is ground up. It is mixed with the new or virgin plastic. Some extrusion processes use other forms of raw material, such as powder or molten plastic. Extruders can have more than one screw. But in this course, we focus on the single screw extruder, the most common type in the industry today. Now we look at the parts of a single screw extruder. Here is an extruder with the covers and guards removed. You can see the barrel and heaters never operate your extruder this way. The removal is for demonstration purposes only. You see here the motor and the reduction gear drive system. The hopper, which holds the plastic raw material to be processed, is here. Here is the barrel. Around the barrel here are heaters. Inside the barrel is the extruder screw. The barrel also has a cooling system. This one uses cooling fans. Some extruders use liquid cooling. The die for shaping the plastic is installed at the end of the barrel. Now let's look at the inside of an extruder to see how it works. The plastic raw material in this hopper travels by gravity to the feed throat and drops onto the rotating screw. The rotation of the screw conveys the plastic forward through the heated barrel. As the plastic is conveyed forward along the screw, the channel depth decreases, forcing the plastic through a smaller area. The combination of compression and screw rotation causes friction, which generates heat. This is called shear heating. This heat, along with the heat from the barrel heating system, melts the plastic. By the time the plastic is conveyed to the end of the screw, it should be well mixed and at a proper temperature and pressure needed by the die. The plastic is called a melt at this stage. Beyond the screw, there can be a screen pack. The screen pack is a set of wire mesh filters that the plastic must flow through. The screens are typically from 20 to 100 mesh, which indicates the wires per inch. The screen pack is supported by a breaker plate, which is a sturdy metal plate with many holes for the plastic to pass through. The screen pack filters contaminants from the melt. The screen pack must be set in place with a coarsest screen next to the breaker plates so each screen can support a finer one. Otherwise, the pressure difference may break the fine wires, contaminating the product and possibly doing permanent damage to the die. As contaminants are blocked by the screen pack becomes increasingly clogged and must be changed to avoid excessive melt temperatures and head pressures. Too high a melt temperature can cause plastic degradation and could cause cooling problems down the line. If the head pressure gets too high, the screen pack may tear open. Operators must watch what goes into the feed very carefully to make sure this does not happen. An alarm on the pressure gauge is an essential safety feature. To change the screen pack, the extruder can be shut down and a new screen pack installed manually or a power-assisted screen changer can be used. In a few operations, especially rigid PVC, there is so much danger of overheating and consequent degradation of the material that processors often choose to run without screens. In these operations, particular care must be taken that the raw material doesn't become contaminated. Beyond the breaker plate, the melt flows to the die. If the opening of the extruder and die are not the same size and shape, an adapter is used to connect them and streamline the flow. All flow passages must be streamlined so the plastic can't hang up. If hang-up occurs, the plastic will degrade. An extruder may have an adjustable restriction called a valve in the adapter section. This valve is used to restrict melt flow and thereby increase the operating pressure of the extruder. From the adapter, the plastic flows through the die where it is shaped into a product such as sheet film, profile pipe, tubing and coated products. We'll review the individual extruder components in sequence, starting with the drive system that powers the screw. The drive system consists of the drive motor, a speed reducer and the thrust bearing assembly. The drive motor through a speed reducer rotates the screw. 909. The rotational speed of an extruder screw is adjustable. The operator sets the screw speed to achieve the correct output and pressure for the die. The maximum screw speed is limited by the shear heating that occurs at the tops of the screw flights. If the shear heating is too high, plastic degradation will occur. To limit the shear heating at the flight tips, large diameter screws rotate at lower RPMs than smaller diameter screws. But in all cases, the electrical drive motor speed is far higher than the allowable screw speed, so speed reduction. These are a set of gears or on small extruders, pulley sheaves. A typical speed reduction is from 1250 to 22.1, meaning a motor running at 1800 rpm would be driving a screw that rotates from 90 to 180 rpm. But since the screw speed must be adjustable, typical screw speeds are between 50 and 150 rpm. There must be a way to change the speed. Both AC and DC drive motors are used. With the DC motors, speed can be adjusted by changing the DC voltage. In variable speed AC motors, the speed is adjusted by changing the AC frequency to the motor. There are older systems that use fixed speed AC motors. With these, the screw speed is adjusted using belts, gears, and mechanical or magnetic speed clutches. Accurate speed control is extremely important in extrusion. Any variation in extruder speed directly affects plastic output, which in turn affects product dimensions. If the motor is coupled to the screw through a gearbox, it is called a direct drive. Extruders can also use a change gearbox to change gear ratios by changing a set of intermediate gears. If the motor is connected to the gearbox by V-belts or timing belts, it is called an indirect drive. The thrust bearing assembly is located here, where the screw shank connects to the reducer's output shaft. The thrust bearing assembly permits screw rotation while absorbing screw thrust. As the extruder screw rotates and forces plastic forward, it develops a large melt pressure ahead of the screw. This is the same pressure that forces the melt through the die. But this pressure also pushes on the screw to try to force it back. The thrust-bearing assembly absorbs this force. The amount of this force can be calculated by multiplying the plastic pressure at the end of the screw by the screw's cross-sectional area. For example, a 3.5-inch extruder screw has a cross-sectional area of 9.6 square inches. If the plastic pressure head of the screw is 5,000 psi, then the force pushing back on the screw is 48,000 pounds. In other words, the force that the thrust-bearing assembly must absorb is 48,000 pounds or 24 tons. Once you realize the amount of force pushing the screw backward, it's easy to understand the importance of the thrust-bearing assembly. The capacity of a thrust-bearing assembly to withstand this force is expressed by a term called beat-10 life. The beat-10 life is the time and hours under designed operating conditions that 90% of a group of identical bearings will meet or exceed before showing signs of failure. In other words, out of 100 bearings, 90 lasts the number of hours specified by the manufacturer, but 10 will fail. In a well-designed extruder, the rated beat-10 life of the thrust-bearing assembly should be at least 100,000 hours, which is a useful operating life of more than 10 years. If a thrust bearing is overloaded, its life will be reduced. A constant overload of 25% cuts thrust-bearing assembly life approximately in half. Thrust bearings can be overloaded if the extruder head pressure is too high, especially at high screw RPMs. These conditions can overload and overheat the bearing.